My client John took my Hard As You Want course to finally address his ED. When he came across my content, he was already having a hard time in the bedroom. Or I guess you could say he was having the opposite of a hard time. You get the picture. John's life seemed to be going great. I mean, he had just gotten a promotion at work. He had been living with his girlfriend for close to a year and it was going really well. By all accounts, he was a super successful guy. But there was something going on with his body. He found that when he was getting it on with his girlfriend, he struggled to get hard. He was attracted to her. He felt like he was turned on, but his dick wouldn't comply with his desire. He was afraid that the causes of his ED were physiological and that the only way to go forward was by taking a pill. But through my course, he discovered the real reason he wasn't able to maintain an erection. John was actually dealing with something called arousal non-concordance. So few people know what this is, but it's more common than you might think for both men and women, which is why I wanted to dive into the difference between this and more of your sort of run-of-the-mill erectile dysfunction causes. Because no matter what you're dealing with down there, the first step to overcoming it is to name it. So, what are the differences and overlaps between arousal non-concordance and the other causes of ED? Well, let's dive in. Number one, arousal non-concordance happens to all genders. While ED is specific to people with penises, arousal non-concordance can happen to everybody with all of the bodies. Arousal non-concordance is simply when your body and your brain do not align on the state of being turned on. So you could be looking at your partner feeling horny as hell, but for whatever reason, you're just not able to get an erection. Alternatively, you could be at your neighbor's funeral feeling the farthest thing from aroused and pitching a tent in your suit pants. Neither situation is ideal. The thing about arousal non-concordance is that it actually happens to everyone, right? So a friend of mine felt her body getting aroused when she was getting an ultrasound, the kind that goes inside, and the technician was like, not her type, not the best time to be getting hot and bothered, but like, again, it makes sense, right? Like your body's responding to something, your brain is not on the same page. Most other forms of ED though, on the other hand, is only an issue experienced by people with penises, and the causes can vary, which brings me to my next point. Number two, psychological versus physiological causes. When it comes to any sexual dysfunction, it is important to determine whether the causes are psychological, meaning like in the mental, emotional space, or physiological, meaning biochemical of the body, or somewhere in between. Erectile dysfunction can have many different causes, and the same is true for arousal non-concordance. Both are impacted by things like stress, fatigue, underlying health conditions, or reactions to medications. Typically, arousal non-concordance tends to be the more temporary of the two, like it can come and go. Whereas ED and its other forms can be a lot more persistent. And when addressing either, it is important to get to the root cause as much as possible in order to address the symptom in a way that is effective. Through my Hard As You Want course, John was able to rule out the physiological reasons. He was a healthy man, in his prime, no medical history. He went to a doctor to have all of that confirmed. However, he was under a lot of stress after his promotion. With the information he got in the course, he was able to realize that he'd been focusing all of his energy at work. And although he and his girlfriend were making time to be intimate in the evenings, they were feeling distant on a day-to-day level. The combination of their distance and his daily stressors at work seemed to be the culprit. Number three, impact on your relationships. Of course, once John struggled to get hard a couple times in a row, he and his girlfriend both only got more into their heads, which led him to my course to begin with. Both other forms of ED and arousal non-concordance can have a significant impact on your intimate relationships. Whenever something shifts between sexual partners, it's important to have an honest and open and caring line of communication. Like, communication is power. John started to feel insecure about his erectile issues, and his girlfriend started to think that he didn't find her attractive anymore. She started to worry, like, oh my God, we've been living together for a year. Maybe he's just not into me. Then that wasn't true. In fact, that couldn't have been further from the truth. Whenever something uncomfortable comes up inside of your relationship, the worst thing that you can do is brush it under the rug. Men, I am talking directly to you. Not only does this create more distance between you and your partner, it also creates more pressure in your mind. And it makes a mountain of what might have been a molehill. For John and his girlfriend, it was important that he communicate with her what was going on. Through the course, he was able to identify the cause of his ED, the thing that was causing his arousal non-concordance. And once he was able to share it with her and reassure her that attraction wasn't the issue, it alleviated the pressure and it got them that much closer to actually restoring the pleasure in their sex life. Number 4, the mind-body connection. Our sexuality and our sexual function is complicated. It is a result of a network of systems that touches literally every single aspect of our lives. And if our minds are full of stress and clutter, we have a hard time tapping into our bodies. And that's what allows us to actually experience arousal and pleasure. And this is why developing a strong mind and body connection is crucial for overcoming arousal non-concordance, no matter what gender you are or what body parts you have. Great sex requires us to be fully present in the moment and tuned into our bodies. So learning how to tune out the static, make that connection with ourselves and our partner is often the key to overcoming whatever challenge you're facing in the bedroom. And John's work in the Hard As You Want course gave him the tools that he needed to regain the strong link between his head and his head. So whatever is in the way of you and the incredible, steamy, freaky sex that you desire, the first step to overcoming it is identifying what that is. Whether it's physiological body thing or more of a mental or emotional or contextual thing like stress at work, there are always resources and solutions to your specific situation. And if you cannot see them from where you are sitting, it just means that you are so focused in on the problem itself that you've lost the ability to creatively expand your vision and see what else is possible. You do not have to live with ED. You do not have to live with inconsistent erections, okay? So if you are experiencing trouble getting or maintaining an erection, check out my course, Hard As You Want. You can consider it a roadmap to getting your boner back. I'm Caitlin B. Thank you for watching. I will see you here next week.